Hi there. Good evening. I did not do any updates yesterday. I have been working on a new program, and I've been talking about it quite a bit actually the last half year or so. It has been a bit complicated to get it done, but now it's up and live on the Seven Wonders Birding webpage. It's the New Zealand program that I've been working on for quite some time. The problem has been somewhat to how to make this program work with a small group, because it's quite unlikely that we get a large group in January 2021. It will start on January the 1st, hopefully. And if New Zealand is open by then, that's not by any means sure, but hopefully it is. And but if we get a large group, of course, then it will be much easier to run this. But here's the thing. So I am going to lead this tour. I'm taking you, and I was in New Zealand for an extended period of time in 2018, and I wanted to set up a tour, and I have some clients that wants to do the tour with me. So I said, okay, I will try to do it for next year. It is somewhat different from the other Seven Wonders birding tours because it doesn't have a World Heritage site like a monument or something. But of course, it's got a lot of scenery, some endemic birds, and fantastic for pelagics, and then the Maori culture. So it does fit in somewhat into the Seven Wonders birding concept. And the other thing that I have been promoting also within the Seven Wonders birding concept, but it's something that I wanted to introduce slowly, say from 20, well, actually from 2021, but now the pandemic came in between. But so it will most likely be sort of putting forward in 2022. And that's the collecting endemic bird families sort of setup. So we do short trips to get the endemic bird families, and New Zealand fits in very well in that sense. So in this 5-day tour, there are lots of highlights. There are all representatives. No, there's one representative from all endemic bird families in New Zealand, and so that is like the kiwi, the stitch bird, and there's some New Zealand wrens types, and this escapes my in my memory here now. There's the parrots. There are New Zealand parrots. There are also the what do you call them? The saddlebacks, those birds in that family. So all in all, there's and the whiteheads. So all in all, there's 6 bird families that are endemic to New Zealand, right? And then New Zealand is also great for pelagics. So within these 5 days, we were actually covering quite a bit. And then there is an extension for another 5 days to the South Island, and there we look for the kea, the black stilt, and we also go to Stewart Island, and we go to the Kaikoura area for a pelagic. So 2 really, really great trips, and all in just 10 days. And most boating tours that you will find on the web to New Zealand are much longer than this. Now, the idea, of course, is to have the group size being, between, say, 8 to 10 people. That is unrealistic at this time, I think. Well, maybe, maybe not. Maybe you're keen on doing this trip. But so it will likely. So here's the thing with New Zealand. I cannot guide there as commercially in the national parks. So in all these sort of reserve areas, I cannot guide. So that's one problem. The other is that I cannot rent a car and do that and drive you around in a commercial basis. So the way around here, I've been in contact with lots of local operators, and they cannot provide these short tours for me over that extent of time at a price that makes the tour possible for the two clients that I have right now. And so I'm forced to do self-driving, but I will not drive, but rather the clients will drive, and that will be okay. So self-drive will be okay. And then I cannot guide in the reserves, and we will get local guides for the reserves, or we will simply, the clients will bird on their own in the reserve, and I will bird on my own. If I find something, I will, I call them over, but I will not be guiding in the reserves. Then again, there's, a very limited number of birds in New Zealand. So if you're at the right place, with effort together, we shall find the birds. So that's how I'm thinking this will work. Hopefully it will work. And as I said, if we get 6 people, then we will use the local operators, and then that will be settled. And you still will get to bird with me. Right, that's it for New Zealand. I'm kind of sad. I was very sad yesterday. I found out that there's not going to be Berlin Marathon this year. It was kind of expected. It had already been said to be postponed because the Germans has said that they will not have any mass events until at least mid-October, and around the 20th of October, something like that, right? So all mass events is out of the questions until that date. Now, the Berlin Marathon was to run on the 27th of September, and that was obviously within the period that made it impossible to run the race at that time. They were considering to postpone it, but it's getting kind of late in the year, so, and it will get colder, and it's still not certain that they actually will open up for mass events after this date either. So maybe they would have to postpone again. So much easier was to cancel the whole thing. And it's been the same also with another event was canceled also. And I think it was the, what else is run in October? Oh yeah, it was decided that the London Marathon will not run at all. So was it in London? It was one of the other major marathons. Maybe it was New York or Chicago that didn't run. So there's like 3 pending world majors marathons, and an additional one of them have been canceled. And they're Chicago, which was postponed, and there was also the London Marathon was postponed, and then you had the New York coming up as well, and the Boston Marathon, of course, was not run either. So it looks like the only of the Masters marathons that actually took place this year is the one in Tokyo, and that was run without any non-elite. Only elites were running that. So it's a pretty bad year for marathon runners. We'll see what happens. I have been diligent though in my running. I've done this far this week. I think I've done like 70 in the last 7 days. I've done over 70 kilometers. So that's not too bad. 72 kilometers the last 7 days. And I hope to end this week with around 75, maybe even 80. I'll see how much I'll get done tomorrow. Last Friday I did 17 kilometers all in all, so that's quite a bit. Then on the other hand, I did not do more than like 3 kilometers on the Sunday, so it could sort of even up. So we'll see how this week ends up. I'm still sort of motivated, but it is sort of also getting a bit desperate to see whether I can get under 3 hours in the marathon if there's no marathons to run. I'm pondering about whether I should run the Comrades Marathon in South Africa next year. I'm thinking very much about that. That's not a regular marathon, but like an ultra race of over 87 kilometers. And that would be something. It's like 2 marathons back to back, and it's hilly too. But if I run that, I will also set up some boating program in Africa around the same time. So we'll see how that comes along. The races starts in Durban or ends in Durban. I think it ends in Durban next year. And it was cancelled, of course, this year again. Another mass event that had been cancelled. And it would be great to be back in South Africa to do some birding there. And I'll see what kind of a program I will come up with. But either it will be next year in June, or it will be in 2022. I'm very, very keen to do this long ultra race. It's a classic race that it's one of the most famous one, and it's got a really long history as well. So it's really something else, and it gets me a chance to do some birding in South Africa. Anyway, so that's about that. And as I've been sort of checking out the net here for different areas to visit, I saw on a group that I run, the whale watching group, and there was some news from Azores in Portugal. People that wants to do whale watching, Azores is one of the best places in the old world for that. And they're starting up actually with international flights in July. And so that's interesting. They're flying from Lisbon, and I think they're flying also from somewhere in Spain. And they're also doing the inter-island flights, yeah. So how are they dealing with the COVID-19? So here's what they are doing, and this is quite interesting. So they require anyone to enter the Azores. It's totally COVID-19 free right now. I think they have no new cases since May. They have a few people that are still treated at the hospital, but it's like 0 cases right now, new cases. So they're doing a great job. And this is how there's the rules that they've set up. In order to enter, you have to have had a COVID-19 test at least, maximum 72 hours before you're entering. So that could be a way forward. If you don't have that, they will take a test when you arrive. If you don't have the test, if that wasn't possible or whatever, for whatever reason, if you can't prove that you had it. And then you will have to isolate for 12 hours waiting for the results, which mainly means that you check into your hotel and you stay there until the next day, right? So that seems doable. And then they have, you have to retest again after 6 days. So, and I'm not sure exactly how that's going to work, but at least it's interesting how international tourism can start again under these sort of premises. And I guess as time runs now, and later on in the year, tests will be more available, and they will be cheaper, they will be faster, and hopefully more reliable as well. So I'm looking with some positivism that there will be some business later in the year, right? So let's fingers crossed. Do you know how you do fingers crossed in Swedish? It's actually holding your thumbs. Here you go. I'm holding my thumbs, right? That's håller tummarna in Swedish. We don't do fingers crossed, right? So anyway, but fingers crossed, or hold your thumbs for actually being able to do some birding in Peru in September. September is like my guess. And where the flights are coming from and how they're going to solve this, that's the next question. They have also talked about not selling the seat in between. And I guess that initially can actually work. There will probably be half empty flights anyway to start with. But it will not work if they're going to have like every other row like that. That's not going to happen. That's just ridiculous. But maybe, and then maybe you can bend that a little bit. Maybe if there's like a family traveling together, well, in that case, they should probably place 3 people in a row. We'll see how that works. Some more news here now, also on the COVID-19. Let's see. Yeah, Machu Picchu was supposed to open on July 1st. Well, it's not. It's opening later in that week. They still have a lot of work to do to sort of prepare things. And Machu Picchu will be open, but it obviously will be open at half capacity. Also, the buses taking you up there will also work at half capacity, and so trains as well will work at lower capacity, and they will probably be another week or 10 days or so before they actually open up, and it will also open up only for people in Peru because there's no way you can get to Peru right now. So, but anyway, hopefully for the indigenous tourism, it can sort of reactivate a little bit, and we can get Peruvians traveling to some extent. And that, as I've been saying in some of these other vlogs that I've been doing, it's going to be regional. Some areas are still not doing too well, and that includes the north. It includes also all the rainforest in the east. And so all those areas will probably be a while before they open up, or at least a little bit later. The Peruvian national holiday on July 28th, usually 28th to 30th, is coming up. And it also precedes of a weekend, so it's actually be only one day in between there. So we're planning to do some trips. We will probably do a Satipo road trip then, also to start working in that area with the community lodge that I've been mentioning before. If you haven't checked it out yet, please do so. There's a blog post on colibriexpeditions.com/blog about the Satipo Road project, and we do need funding for that as well. If you are able to make donations, that would be fantastic. I will be setting up a new way of funding there as well, a new web page that Diego Calderon was talking about in one of his comments in my on one of my posts recently. And they're doing a great thing in Colombia, by the way. They're having a fundraiser for people in the field that are the people have been helping out, like local guides, local hostels, etc., that Bird has been using, in feeder stations, local transporters, etc. They are not having any income. So check out Diego Calderon's page and see if you can help out a little bit on that. So our strategy here, they're better organized in Colombia than we are here in Peru, and there may be cases in Peru where there are people in sort of much more need than tour companies like my own, even though it's pretty dire right here. But there are a lot of people that are having a hard time. However, I must say that in Peru, there are relatively few people. I will try to figure out who is actually, but relatively few people who are sort of 100% depending on birding tourism in the areas that we visit now, right? Like in northern Peru and central Peru. But there are a few, and I'll try to see whether I can actually get those activated in some sense, and maybe do some sort of fundraising for that purpose also. But for the time being, the fundraising that we really want to do is for the Satipo Road Community Lodge, where we would help the local community there. We will also supply work for people that are staff of Colibri Expeditions, but right now have zero income, and they are 100% relying on their on their income. I mean, they're using like their the Peruvian state has allowed people to use their pension funds to withdraw from their pension funds actually to just survive. And so a lot of people are doing that. And that's basically how they are surviving right now, but they have no income, right? So we're very much in need of getting reactivated. And the way of doing that is actually to do this Satipa Road project. So do read up on that and see how you can help. It will both employ two of our staff while they don't have any work, and it will also give a resource to the community there, which also have a very hard time and during this time there's no income. Another area that I want to help out also, and I know I still have to talk to Cesar at Fonin Lake, but I imagining that he has also quite difficulty to get some income right now. The situation in the Hunin Lake is pretty dire also. I will talk more about that further on here in one of these talks, but one of the problems is that there is now trout in the lake accidentally. There wasn't any before. And trout can both be a predator on the Hunin Grebe, and it can also be a resource for the local people. Now they don't have any money, right? So what do they do instead? Well, they go into the lake and start fishing for trout with nylon, these fine meshed nets. And that sounds like a good idea, right? You get rid of the trout. Well, not so much, because one of the major threats to grebes, and it has been all over the world, and especially in those cases where the grebes have gone extinct, are these, or are severely threatened, are these gill nets that are invisible, and the grebes get caught in them. They're already doing pretty poorly, and now all of a sudden there are these fine meshed nylon nets that they can get caught in as well. So big problem there, and we really need to do something about that. So it was about a month ago that I talked with people in the park, or probably a little bit more than that, and it's a very serious situation. So we want to reactivate that also. Maybe we get some weekend excursions to the Junin Lake with the local people here from Lima, the sort of bird watching group that I'm putting together. Right. Do we have anything else on my list here? Let me see. 4,000. What's this? Oh yeah. So some good news maybe is the following, and the numbers of cases of COVID cases in Peru seems to have plateaued somewhat, and maybe coming down. So for 10 days in a row now, except one day that we had 40 over. For 10 days in a row, we have been below 4,000, except that one day, and new cases. So that means that it's sort of more steady right now, right? So in terms of, I mean, it's still increasing in Peru, but it's increasing at a not exponentially, and that's very positive. And I think that we may actually be flattening the curve very soon. And the authorities have very good plans in place. I mean, some things that has been of a problem is the need for people to sort of start making a buck again, and that has actually the lockdown has been positive in some sense, but in other senses it's actually made it more difficult, because then people are trying to get back into the highlands, for instance, that they've been walking, they've been going out even during the sort of total curfew lockdown, people did not have enough resources to get food. And instead of being in Lima, they, as you know, Lima's been sort of like a melting pot where people have been coming together from the highlands, from the rural areas into urban Lima and try to make a buck here. Well, that is not possible anymore. So what do they do instead? Well, we'll have to go back into the country. At least there we could grow our, we could have our animals, we could grow our food and so forth. So people are trying to get back to their places where they're from, and they couldn't do that. So they conglomerated in areas where they try to get rides with transports, like people that are bringing vegetables back and forth from the Andes or other goods, and they could get a hitch a ride with those. And obviously they start mingling, and then they spread the disease to new communities, etc., etc., etc. So the lockdown was a good idea, and it worked in some areas where people could just sort of go down to the supermarket and buy their stuff and use their credit card and max out their credit cards. Well, so much that's great for people in the middle class, but the people that in the informal economies, it does not work that way. So that is why the numbers have gone up so quickly. And also, as I mentioned in previous of these vlogs, the markets where poorer people or people with less resources are actually getting their goods at lower prices. And also they mix together a lot of people in the same area. And now, having said that, the market where I go and buy our groceries and our vegetables and so forth, they have very strict COVID-19 regulations there, and even you go through this ozone tunnel to get into the market, and you have to wear a mask, and you have to they even sterilize the money, they spray alcohol on your money. so that they're really they're doing a good job. So I'm happy about the way that things are done here, and the regulations that are in place. And I'm sure that it will be some time, but eventually we will surpass this rather difficult time, and people will be starting be able to start working again. So that was pretty much it for tonight. Hopefully I will be back here tomorrow again, and also on my Facebook profile. And until then, good night. Keep safe.